Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May plenary 2026. You'll notice that there are a few changes, some few things unusual today. As you'll appreciate, I'm the acting president, as the president is taking time out, and we continue to wish him and Francis Bishatova. And the other difference today is that we have our new appointed independent chair, Laura Marks. With Karen having become a vice president, being elected vice president, we have appointed two independent chairs, Laura and Josie Price, as additional chairs to Dame Louise Ellman. So I'm very grateful for Laura stepping up this morning. Just to wish everyone Chodesh Tov. It's the beginning of the month of Sivan. And of course, that means many things, but in the context of the Board of Deputies, most of all, Jewish Culture Month, which I'm sure we will come to in due course. First of all, I'd just like to wish a number of Mazel Tovs to deputies, to Deputy Linda Sharp and husband Donald, on becoming great grandparents to Goldie Daisy, to Deputy Flora Frank on the joint bar mitzvah, or barei mitzvah, I should say, of two great grandsons in Israel. That's particularly nice because for those who are into these things, the constellation for the month of Sivan is Gemini, which are twins. So that's a very nice connection to be made there. And to Deputy Eleanor Lind on her 88th birthday. I'd also like to wish Mazel Tov to Julian Berman as well, who's been elected chair of Radlett Reform, which has now gone through a merger process to become the Progressive Synagogue in Hertfordshire. So wishing you Hatzlacha Rabbah in that role as well. Also, sadly, we do have some condolences. So to Deputy Spencer Nathan on the sad passing of his wife Marilyn, and to Deputy Josh Aronson on the loss of his mother-in-law, Ruth. We wish them both a long life, and may their memories always be for a blessing. I'd like to welcome new deputies who have joined the board since our meeting of April. So we have Anne Milberg, Deputy for Seed Shaw of the Federation, Rochelle Lazarus for Jewish Volunteering Network, Susie Goldston Brady, North Manchester Reform Sharei Shalom Synagogue, Kochav McLaughlin, who's the under 35 observer for Mosaic Liberal Synagogue, Sharon Herrera and Max Royston for St John's Wood United Synagogue, and Louise Clements for Plymouth CIC. And I apologise if I've missed anybody else out. But what it means is we now have a complement of 330 deputies, which is heartening, as it shows that the board is going from strength to strength. Thank you very much. I'm going to keep my introductory words to briefly. Sorry, my cat's just intruding. Push the cat back. So, as people will be aware, since our last plenary, the situation regarding attacks on the community, anti-Semitism, and the difficult environment have continued to be an acute issue, particularly with the firebombing incidents and the stabbing in Golders Green. And so a huge amount of focus by ourselves and communal partners has been focused on that. And I'm sure we'll come back to that in due course. So I just want to say, first of all, a thank you to all of our communal partners with whom we've been collaborating in these circumstances. We've achieved, I think, considerable amount during this period. There's an unprecedented summit convened by the Prime Minister at Downing Street. And we had the rally last Sunday where we did our best to create a big tent to get as many people in the community involved in that initiative. And of course, since then, we've had meetings with the Home Affairs Select Committee, and very productive meetings with the police and the CPS, all of which we can get back to in due course. But I do also want to not lose sight of the fact that there are positive things happening as well, and in particular, as I mentioned, Jewish Culture Month, which has its official launch this evening. So both of these things highlight the challenges that we face, but also the resilience of the community, and the importance of being of being very centered on our own traditions and culture, and most of all to continue to believe in Koisa Erasing Muxela there, that we should all be responsible for each other. And without ado, I'm now going to hand over to Laura. Thank you.
So, good morning, everybody, and it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here. For anyone who doesn't know me, I was the Senior Vice President of the board from 2012 to 15. So, I've been a deputy quite a long time, and it's a real, as I say, a real honor to be here to support the honorary officers, particularly at a time when Phil is off and Adrian is standing in as acting president, and I really wish him well, both of them, both Phil and Adrian, in his new role. So, just a few introductory points, which you heard before, but I think is nevertheless worth reiterating. First of all, we hope that everybody, I know everybody, will behave in a beautiful, polite way, in the way that I know that everybody can, and obviously no slander. And the rules around slander have been put into the papers, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. Um, I think that just to know that we are today not live streaming this, but it will be recorded. So be aware of that. Be also aware that there may well be members of the press here. So think very carefully before you say anything that might be derogatory or a problem. Can you please make sure your name is on the Zoom? So I know this sort of confuses some people, but basically the name that you have showing up on your Zoom, make sure it's your name, not iPad 3 or something weird and wonderful, or your partner Zoom or whatever it is. We really want to encourage people to speak who maybe haven't spoken before. If you're a first-time speaker, if you're a new deputy, you're particularly welcome. And it's a short meeting today, so there won't be a lot of time for people to speak more than once. So please speak once, and if you haven't spoken, then speak up. Um, Also, just please be aware that sometimes it's very difficult for people to hear well online. So speak clearly, make sure you haven't got your face covered, make sure you haven't got your bits of paper in front of, and be aware that some people do find it difficult to hear, and be as clear as you can. Um, and if you're standing the by-election, you can't speak today, so just please be aware of that as well. Okay, so I think that's all the housekeeping that we need. I'm going to move on rapidly to the approval of the minutes. And I'm going to assume that the minutes are approved unless anybody wants to raise their hand now, because there's been plenty of chance to challenge anything that's in the minutes until now. So I'll just pause for a second. Okay, so let's take the minutes as approved. Thank you very much, and we can move on to the meeting. So this next part of the meeting is the part where we invite deputies to put questions to the acting president or the honorary officers around issues that have come up since the last plenary. We are limiting everybody, because we want to get as many people in as possible, to 1 minute, which feels tight, but just make your point. And we're going to try today to clump questions. I also want to say that we have got a forum. The second half of the meeting is a forum specifically on anti-Semitism. And we're all very aware that this is an issue that's right at the top of everybody's minds. But if there are other issues that you would like to raise today as well, and keep the sort of substantive issues around anti-Semitism to the second half, that would be really helpful, and give people a chance to talk about other issues at the same time. So I'm going to start. I've got about 8 hands gone up, and we will start. And as I say, we're going to try and clump them so that the honorary officer who you are aiming your question at is able to answer maybe a few questions on a particular topic. All right, so I'm going to start, and please start by saying your name and saying your constituency and speaking nice and clearly. Okay, thank you. Derek, over to you.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, Derek, yes.
Okay.
Just so you all know, you will be, your timing hasn't started, don't worry. Um, the Leo and his tech team will unmute you and start the clock for you. So unless you've got some technical problems, you should be fine to just start when I invite you to speak, okay? So thank you, Derek. Go for it.
Thank you. First of all, Laura, welcome. I'm sure you'll be an additional asset. My question is this regarding interfaith. I hope that everyone's read a leading piece that was written by Fiaz Mughal, who attended the protest on last Sunday. And he wrote a piece in the Telegraph which was titled, "Why Was I the Only Muslim to Speak at the March Against Anti-Semitism?" And I would argue that he spoke more honestly and constructively than anybody at the board has done over a decade. My question is, with all the interface work that has supposedly been done by the board, what what is there to show? And how does the board and senior leadership of the board understand this failing, absolute failing from my part, and where does it go from here? Immediately after the Golders Green attack, there was correctly so, an outpouring by the board and other members of the community questioning the wider community. We can't fight this ourselves. Where are
Okay,
you?
Derek, I'm going to interrupt you with your time, but I take your point. Your point is what's the board doing about interfaith and is it worth it? Correct? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next question, because I'll see if there are other questions about interfaith relations, and I'll work on that as the board. Toby, over to you.
Yes, the host unmuted me. Toby Millis, Bromley Reform Synagogue under 35 observer. Sheikh Achianu for me. This is my first ever board plenary online. Don't know what to expect. Definitely feels different. My question is also about the rally. As well intended is uniting as many different viewing organizations all together. Uh, can the board justify, especially Adrian, you and your Pat, justify um, what makes a rally with political speakers speaking apolitical?
Can I just clarify when you say what makes it apolitical, Toby, just clarify, you've got a few more seconds. What do you mean?
Um, Having politicians speaking at what is meant to be an apolitical rally, how does that make it apolitical?
Okay, so
And
you're asking,
what is the intention from the board and JLC in having all these political leaders or as many political leaders as they possibly can have?
okay, so I
Yeah,
think your question is why are there political leaders at the rally, correct?
that's what is meant
Yeah.
to be an apolitical event. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Paul, I just want to be really clear with the questions, okay? Thank you. Paul, Paul, speak, you're with us.
Oh,
Paul,
thank you. Just that I hadn't. Okay, as promised, over the period of about a year to 2 years, I'm bringing up the IRGC yet again, yet again, yet again. The Starmer government have promised us recently at Golders Green that they will prescribe the IRGC. Nothing and nothing has happened. What is our next action? Thank you.
okay, so thank you. So what's happening about prescribing the IRGC? Okay, thank you very much. We'll come back to that one. Emma, thank you.
Emma Brand, Edger and Hendon Reform Synagogue. Ahead of last week's rally, over 2,000 people signed a letter expressing concern about the involvement of Nigel Farage and Reform, and at least one communal organisation pulled out altogether. At the rally itself, progressive politicians and religious leaders were booed, young Jews were harassed for signs acknowledging Islamophobia as well as anti-Semitism, and a left-wing campaigner who wanted to show solidarity was harassed out of the rally. What will the board do to represent those of us who want nothing to do with Nigel Farage, Reform or Stop the Hate and prevent extremists from dominating Jewish public events to the exclusion and denigration of anyone they disagree with?
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to aim these at the acting president. I'm going to take these questions about the politicization of the rally. Okay. So anybody else who wants to talk about the politicization of the rally, I hope will therefore not ask those questions. And I'm going to hand it to Adrian. Adrian, would you like to answer these two questions so far about the politicization of the rally?
Yeah.
Um, and then I think hopefully, because I'm sure there's a few questions about that. So, Adrian, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So I think I'm dealing here with Toby and Emma's questions in
Mm.
particular. So just to give a little bit of context here, is obviously passions are running high, as to some extent they still are, and we're still in a situation with a severe alert in terms of risk to the community. And I won't reiterate all the things that happened, but those provided, particularly Stabbings and Golders Green, the backdrop to the organisation of this rally. And there was we were picking up through our involvement in the community across stakeholders a strong desire to have a rally, and so it was meeting or anticipating that demand, and so what we sought to do was to work with communal colleagues to have a broad-based big tent approach to this rally. People may recall that round about the same time as us announcing that we were going to do a rally, the CAA announced that they were also going to do one, and Stop the Hate had also been preparing to do one, and so the proposal was to bring everyone together rather than to have competing events, and I believe that that's the right thing. I just want to just to make the point, certainly speaking on my own personal experience and anecdotally, that I've overwhelmingly had positive feedback on the rally. I've had enormous numbers of people telling me that they were very pleased with the rally. There are lots of people. There's lots of points about what could be done better, and you know, and there's any different ways of imagining how this rally could have been. Um, but because we were working with a wide range of organisations, the board and the JLC, but also UJA, CST, but also Stop the Hate and the CAA, and others, inevitably there was a process of give and take, and it was all being done under extreme pressure as well, which you have to understand. And there was a debate about whether or not to have political speakers. At all previous rallies, that's been the format, and we attempted, therefore, to have as broad a range of speakers as we could have, and also cognizant of the fact this was coming immediately after the local elections. So we therefore included both the Lib Dems, the government, Conservatives, and Reform. It would have been very difficult to exclude Reform because of their performance in the local elections, but also because a material part of the community either voted for Reform or would have expected us to have had Reform on the platform. Nigel Farage wasn't there, but Richard Tice was going to attend anyway, and it would have been very difficult to have excluded him from the platform. So that's why that happened, and we have to take into account the fact that Reform are a serious political force in this country, and therefore we have to engage with them, and we can't. It's a point I've made previously. We have to kind of rise above our own political perspective and look at what's in the interests of the community as a whole, and that means inevitably that you engage with people whose politics may not be your own, but that's just the reality of the situation. So I hope that that addressed those questions. I'm obviously aware of the petition that was signed by 2,000 people. Some of those people came. There were some challenges at the rally for sure, just as there were challenges in organising this rally, and we've met with people who were impacted by those challenges, and we're looking forward as to how we can address those things and do things better. So I'm very candid about that. But it was a highly charged environment, and we were doing our best to pull this thing together and make it a success, which I think in overall terms we did. There's an element of self-selection here as well. If vast numbers of people had come from that part of the political spectrum, then perhaps that would also have had an impact on the environment and the composition of the rally. So that obviously, that's not to shirk responsibility. We have to try and make these events as conducive and attractive to as broad a spread of people as we possibly can. But that's also a factor which has to be taken into account.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. I think if people want to ask, I think that's a pretty full explanation. And I know, as you say, that emotions have run deep over this one, but I don't think Adrian has got much more to say on that one, is my suspicion. So if you were going to ask another question about the rally and you can not, that would be great because we could talk about other things. So because I think that was a very helpful, full explanation about what happened. So thank you for that. Okay, Carol.
Hello, Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley Synagogue in the leafy borough of Lewisham, which I'm pleased to say has for many years, the council has been extremely supportive of the synagogue and its rather small Jewish community. However, it was a very strong Labour council, and in the local elections, it has changed massively. We now have 40 Green councillors, 8 Labour councillors. Many of our long-term friends have gone and no longer on the council, and we are very wary of what lies ahead. I just wanted to bring this to the board's attention and ask for your support, possibly in the future if we need it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the question is around a council that's turned green or large, and what support that you can expect from the Board of Deputies. Correct, Carol?
Yeah,
Lovely.
thank
Okay,
you.
nice to see you. Thank you. Eleanor.
Yes, thank you. Eleanor Milne, Deputy for Yachad. So it does relate to the rally. It was a helpful answer, Adrian, but I just have a follow-up on some things you said. So it was difficult, time was short, and it's a really difficult job managing communal relations. I do appreciate all of that. But you also said now, there's time to reflect afterwards, and you mentioned you've met with some people and are following up. And I understand that some of those people were some of those young people that Emma mentioned, who include some communal professionals who were harassed and forced to leave that rally because they had signs saying things like, "We oppose anti-Semitism and Islamophobia." And I also understand that Stop the Hate marshals were specifically part of that harassment, and that those young people then have asked the board and the JLC to commit to stop working with Stop the Hate. So the question is, will the board be doing that?
Okay, so thank you, Eleanor. The question is, will the board stop working with Stop the Hate? Correct? Thank you, Eleanor. Owen.
Good morning. It's Owen Parr from York Liberal Jewish Community, and my question is for Karen. Karen, a constituent came to see me quite recently who is a social worker, and he's expressed grave concern about the situation in the profession with the really acute rise of anti-Semitism. He feels that the board just might be sidelining them slightly. So could you reassure Jewish social workers that they will get the support from the board regarding anti-Semitism within the profession? Thank you.
Jewish social workers, correct? Yes? Owen, yes? So Jewish social workers.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you. I just want to be absolutely sure that I get the nub of every question. Thank you. Janvier. Sorry, I missed you, I think, before. I apologize.
Yes, Janvier Palmer, Bromley Reform Synagogue. Also, I would like to reiterate the point that Owen just made, having also had constituents from third sector spaces who are concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism in those spaces. My question is for Karen Newman. Last year, the BBC announced that it would make anti-Semitism training compulsory for its staff, as well as review their structures at BBC Arabic. I wanted to know if the BBC had disclosed who is providing the anti-Semitism training and what progress has been made, has been reported by the BBC in tackling anti-Semitism within their organisation?
Okay, thank you. So the question's about anti-Semitism training within the BBC. I think probably Karen is going to cover this in the next section. Karen, I can't see you, but message me, in which case we'll come back to her on that one. But it's a question that I've got written down now here. So thank you very much for that one, Jean-Pierre. Important question. Thank you. Zev. We can't really see
You can hear
you.
me. You
We
can hear
can
me
hear
now?
you. We can hear you, but we can't really see you. But don't worry about
Yeah, it's
it.
because of the curtains.
Yeah. Okay. Don't
Okay.
worry.
All right. I
Thank
don't know
you.
why. All right.
No, no.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, go.
Zare Portland Maidenhead Synagogue. Just firstly to say that, just put it on record that Adrian delivered a marvellous speech at the rally. So I think I could speak on a lot of deputies on that behalf. It was brilliant. My question is this. Obviously, we saw that the Green Party exploited the Gaza situation for political gain. I'm just wondering, has there been any research about the fact that a possible contributing factor to reform's growth in strength, and this is the horseshoe theory, is that a lot of the working class are not very keen on the Gaza rallies, and this may have contributed to them gaining some political strength in this country. And I'm just wondering if there's any evidence about this. I'm not saying it's the main factor that contributed to their growth in political support, but I believe that it has contributed. The Gaza demonstrations week after week has contributed to the growth in support for reform. Thank you. And I'm just wondering if there's any academic studies about that.
Okay, so the question is there any evidence that the rallies have contributed to the growth in reform, correct?
Support for reform, yes. Not the main factor, but contributing factor.
Okay. I'm just writing that down. Okay, thank you. I'm going to take one more and then I'm going to group them together and come back for some answers, okay? Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Paul Edlin, Glasgow Jewish Representative Council, part of the Jewish Council of Scotland. My question, there has been a recent parliamentary election for the Scottish Parliament where a minority Scottish National Party government has been formed. They have a history, if not being anti-Semitic, certainly being antipathetic to mainstream Jewish values. The First Minister has described the situation in the Gaza war as genocide and various other such comments, and has refused to have any dealings with Israel. And he has formed an alliance, or is meeting Sinn Féin and various other such groups. My question is, the small Jewish community in Scotland needs the board support. I would like to ask, what additional support is the board going to be offering to the Jewish communities of Scotland who urgently need support at this most difficult of times? I don't think anybody in the United Kingdom understands how difficult the situation is compared with England.
And Paul, who would you like to answer that question?
The acting president, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I've got so far questions about the Greens and support and our relationship with the Greens and whether we can support people who are dealing with that. Eleanor, your question about the rally, the specific part is the board going to work with Stop the Hate or continue to work with Stop the Hate? The piece around anti-Semitism in the BBC and within social workers and the third sector, I'm going to leave until the anti-Semitism forum, okay? Because I think that's something that will be covered in there. If that's all right, Owen and Jean-Pierre, I hope that's all right. We'll move those over to there. And specifically about support for Scotland and the regions, Paul. So I'm going to ask Adrian now, acting president. Can you talk about, please, the issue of, are we going to continue to work with Stop the Hate and support for, I think, both Carol's point about local areas where they're facing problems and Scotland, regional areas or devolved governments where we're supporting problems. Can you talk about those two issues, please? Support for specific issues and Stop the Hate.
Yeah, thank you. Regarding the rally and Stop the Hate, The issues which have been highlighted around stewarding were the subject of the meeting with people who were impacted by that, and certainly looking forward, we are going to approach stewarding in a different way. So it will be communally owned broadly with people with whom we can have confidence that there's absolute sort of neutrality in their approach to stewarding. We're not about excluding organisations, and we're looking to increase the people who participate in our activities, and so therefore I don't want, and it wasn't the outcome of the meeting that we should exclude any organisation. That's not the approach that we want to take. So I hope that answers that. But of course, we've taken very seriously the more challenging and difficult aspects of what happened at the rally. There's a number of different components to it, and I'm conscious of time. But there are bringing people together with very different views is a difficult subject, but also behaviours, and looking forward, we're also going to try and address behaviour at these rallies, and as it was mentioned by someone in one of the questions, apologies, can't remember who it was, maybe Emma, about booing. Booing has become a thing now at communal events, and not just the Jewish community, I think the wider British public as well. And it is particularly troubling. And I just want to say, while I have the opportunity, that the booing of the government minister Pat McFadden I found particularly distressing, because I know that of all the senior politicians in the government, that Pat McFadden's one of those who's shown great support and commitment to the Jewish community over many years. So, but it's very difficult to regulate the way that people behave, but certainly just dressing the culture is one of the things that we are focused on. Coming on to the Green Party and the situation Carol finds herself in. So there've been some radical changes across the country, and I'm conscious, certainly in my own local patch, in Haringey and Hackney, of the significant challenges that they have, and I know that Carol's has even more so in her council. There are a lot of problems. There are a lot of challenges with the Green Party, particularly the leadership of it has been particularly problematic during the anti-Semitism crisis as it's been unfolding, as well as the lack of vetting of candidates who are likewise who are even more so problematic. So this is something that we're going to have to address. We've also lost a lot of well-established relationships and allies in local government. So this means we've got a strong work in progress, both for us and for our local rep organisations in the context of Lewisham, London Jewish Forum. We do have, I do want to emphasise that notwithstanding the problems we have at the top of the Green Party, we do have an active dialogue going with the Green Party, and there are Jewish Greens as well, and we are talking with them. And so it's work in progress, but we're going to have to find a way to address the practical needs of local communities, notwithstanding some of the political differences. It's kind of reminiscent, really, of how we had to deal with the mayoralty under Ken Livingstone, for those who recall it. It is possible to do these things, but I don't underestimate the political challenges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, sorry,
Okay.
Adrian, didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm just aware we've got 11 or lots more questions. But
just very briefly on Scotland, just so I take the points that Paul has made. We actually have a meeting coming up with Carmen McPherson, who is Chief Executive of JCOS, the Jewish community in Scotland. And yes, of course, that's an absolute priority for us. And of course, just also to advertise it, we have our regional plenary in Edinburgh coming up as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to take 6 questions, all right, and then I'll clump them together because I'm just very aware of time. So, Simon, welcome.
Different point. We now have a Druze party in Israel. I have a friend who's a Druze, and he gave me the details of a leader of the Druze community in the UK. I've heard nothing back from whoever I sent it to. We need to be able to link to some of the minority parties, especially the Druze, and similarly the Sikhs. I was in Amritsar last year, and I spent a lot of time talking to them locally. They, like the Druze, will be incredibly helpful to us. And if you would like my help, Adrian, I'm more than happy to volunteer.
Thank you. Rosalind. Well, thank you, Simon, for that. Rosalind.
Thank you. Rosalind Lewis, Kingston Surbiton District Synagogue. It's on the same line, interfaith, as the first speaker, the first deputy. I've been involved in interfaith work for many, many years, long before I was on the board, with CCJ and interfaith groups. I feel there's been a deafening silence from interfaith groups. My own CCJ, I haven't heard from. I haven't seen anything. Maybe I've missed it. Tell me if I have. From the new Archbishop of Canterbury, who we made a great fuss of because she was the first woman in umpteen thousand years. The head of the Methodists, the head of the Archbishop of the Catholics. We have heard nothing. What is going on? Are we just going to be ignored and fight our own battle as we have done for 2,000 years? Or are they going to stand up and be counted? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rosalind, for that. An area close to my heart. So I'm going to, and I also aware we haven't asked about Derek's question yet, so we'll come back to that as well. So in a moment, we'll talk about interfaith relations and about allyship as well, because I think allyship will cover the Druze issue as well. So I'll come back to allyship in a moment. So if anybody wants to talk about interfaith relations or allyship, then and can manage not to ask the question, that would be brilliant. But Rosalind, thank you. We'll come back to it. Susan, welcome.
Thank you. Susan Pascoe, Near Israel Community. My question for Adrian. I'd like to raise issues related to anti-Zionism posed by the recent report from Stand With Us and the truly shocking results of hate and physical attacks experienced by pro-Israel and Jewish students at universities, which is sadly nothing new, as we know. The report highlights how universities are failing to address anti-Zionism as modern anti-Semitism, and they're calling for anti-Zionism to be treated as severely as anti-Semitism. As many of you may know, I co-chair the board's higher education working group, and these problems are much, much wider than universities. It seems that communal organizations have been reluctant to tackle this head-on because of freedom of speech issues, but many in our community are desperate to see a really bold and explicit approach. So I'd be very grateful for your comments on that. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that, Susan. This is about anti-Zionism. I'm just checking whether that's going to be covered in the anti-Semitism forum specifically, okay? Otherwise, we'll come back to it in this one. But I've noted it, and we'll come back to it either in this session or in the forum. Thank you. Is it Ruth or Paul Hart, this question? Because I'm aware that we've got Paul's specific question about the IRGC. Welcome, Ruth. Was your question the same question or different question? Different question. Go for it.
Yes. Well, I'd like to add to Simon's comments about interfaith. We also need to include Hindus and Buddhists in that. But my question was about our Muslim co-signatories of the Drum Lanrig Accords. Have we heard from them, like regarding any of the atrocities that have happened and to Jews on British soil? And if not, what was the point of the exercise?
Have we heard from who, sorry?
The Muslim co-signatories to the Drum Lanrig Accords. I mean.
Oh, I see. Okay, I mean, I can tell you this. Yes, there's been no. There's been several actually responses by imams and Muslim faith leaders in the last couple of weeks. There has been a lot, but I'm going to add that to the question on interfaith. But yes, okay, thank you, Ruth. Jeremy.
Thank you, thank you very much, Laura. And Adrian will know, because I've raised it with him personally, about the importance of us having another roundtable with the Foreign Office. We are aware, and I know we're going to be discussing this later, that an Iran-linked group or an IRGC-linked group has claimed responsibility for a string of attacks on the Jewish community, including arson attacks and the recent stabbings. And yet it seems to me that the Foreign Office is playing the instrumental role in blocking prescription of the IRGC, and this is across several governments. And doubtless they may also be playing a role in negatively, that is, when it comes to issues of prescribing other elements of the Islamic Republic of Iran and their influence in the UK. I think the question is the Foreign Office letting down the Jewish community in this regard? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Jeremy, I'm going to clump this one into the question with that Paul asked earlier about the prescription, and so we'll come back to that one. Thank you, Arthur.
Question.
Arthur, can you turn on your camera?
Yeah. On we go.
Brilliant, thank you.
All the press is talking about Keir Starmer having to resign, with even a coronation for Andy Burnham if he beats Reform in Josh Simon's old constituency. Have we looked and been proactive in the sense of working or talking to the leadership challengers so that we know what they're thinking and they know what we're thinking? So especially Andy Burnham, because of his Manchester connections, what do we know about what he's been doing? And for that matter, Wes Streeting as well.
Okay, thank you. So about challengers, are we in touch with them? I'm going to take Josh, Sue, Janet, and Edward. Just if you can be half a minute, otherwise we're just not going to, and then I'm going to clump them into some quick responses from the president. Okay, Josh, very quickly, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Josh from Janetics. The rise of anti-Semitic incidents in the NHS is well known and documented, and has likely led to many members of the community either actively avoiding NHS services or choosing to hide their Jewish identity. What is the board doing to work with the NHS to ensure that staff are making the experience as comfortable and welcoming as possible for the Jewish community, and also highlighting, I'll be really quick, one sentence, highlighting the importance of being able to express your Jewish heritage, as there are genuine clinical implications to that.
Brilliant, thank you. I know this is going to be covered in the second part, so thank you. Anti-Semitism is going to be covered in a minute. So if your questions on anti-Semitism, just please hold it. But thank you for raising that, Josh. Sue.
Sue Huckland, All Hebrew Congregation. Yesterday, there was an example of two-tier policing. Facial recognition cameras used at the United Kingdom rally were not used at the NAPBA rally. And at the NAPBA rally, there were placards claiming that the UK is controlled by Zionists and destroyed by their greed. And there was also I believe there was mass thugs that went unchallenged. My question is this: despite the many meetings that the board has had with the Met, why are they still allowing this, and why haven't they clamped down on it?
Okay, thank you, Sue. So it's about policing at rallies. Thank you. Janet, and then we finish, and then Edward, and then we're finishing. Thank you. Janet Tresman, welcome.
Thank you. Janet Tresman, Liberal Judaism. Hello, friends. Just to let you know that there was a fantastic meeting with the Archbishop of Canterbury on Thursday morning with the Rabbonim of Progressive Judaism, Reform and Liberal, and it went very well indeed. And that was in answer to Rosalind's question.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the acting president about interfaith relations, and I'm going to ask him about the IRCG and policing. Those are the two things I'm going to ask him to finish with. But Edward, quick question.
Yes, Edward Green, Edinburgh. I just want to answer Ruth first. Firstly, the drum chords. The chief imam who really was the spearhead has been in touch personally. There's been a letter sent out. There's been a lot of activity, perhaps not as much as one would have liked, but there's never as much as one would have liked. But we have had response. And in response to Paul Edlin, it might be an idea. I know the meeting has been made with Carver Common, who is the director of the Jewish community of Scotland, which is a new form. It might be an idea for the board to have a meeting with her and all the deputies if in Scotland if they wish to join. I think the idea of having a blanket meeting.
Edward, your time out, and I'm really sorry we're so tight on time, but thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to, for the last word on this, I'm going to hand over to Acting President specifically and briefly on interfaith relations. I think Edward covered some of that sort of on interfaith relations and on the specific about the IRGC.
Yeah, so can I just very quick, can also pick up Simon Gordon's point about the Druze community, if that's okay? Just say, Brian Balkin and I did meet with a member of the Druze community probably about 6 months ago. As when Sueda was under attack at the time by jihadists. And yes, I'd be very happy to meet with further members of the local community just to confirm that. And indeed, we've done a lot of outreach with other minorities within the Middle East. Regarding interfaith, and as Laura foreshadowed, that's one of her areas as well. Just picking up on Derek's comments, I mean, obviously there is a lot of frustration around interfaith, and part of that is because of extremists within. If we're focusing on the Muslim communities for the moment, there because of extremism within the Muslim community often chills the ability of the moderate leadership to engage with us. But as Edward said, there are practical positive examples of engagement. There's also a letter signed by 30 leading Muslims in, I think it's last week, as part of the expressions of solidarity with the community. Really, I just want to refer to 216 of Pirkei Avot, which people be aware of. It's not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it. And I think that's really applies in this case. So, yes, of course, there are shortcomings and disappointments, but I just don't believe that it's something that we can give up on either. And coming out of it, there are positive examples of that. So hopefully that addresses both Derek and Rosalind. I share the frustrations, but I don't believe that it's something that we can neglect. On the IRGC, just to say that was actually referenced, so and that's in relation to Paul and also to Jeremy as well. It was in the King's speech, and there's a state threats bill that is part of the King's speech, which creates new powers to ban state-linked groups such as the IRGC. So, yeah, again, it's something we've been campaigning for in all our meetings with the SCDO. It was a manifesto commitment of the Labour Party before the election. The previous Conservative government refused to do it as well. Various explanations, as Jeremy will know, have been given for that. But it does look like we are getting there, albeit that it has been painfully slow process.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to let Jeremy have a quick word here because he's an honorary officer, though I'm meant to be moving on to the next section. So, Jeremy, quick word.
Thank you, Laura. Just to point out, and unfortunately, due to an oversight, the CED report was late being put into the board online link to all the documents. It did come in, but some of you may not have seen it. It wasn't with the PDFs, unfortunately. But if you now go online, you'll see it in the list of documents, and you can read the CED report. And of course, you can always WhatsApp me or call me if you have any questions relating to anything we do in the CED.
Thank you. And thank you for that clarification. So I'm only 5 minutes late, which for my first session, I think wasn't terrible. And I'm now going to hand over to the section, which is a forum specifically on the anti-Semitism crisis, which I know that Karen is going to lead the way and give us an introductory outline. So Vice President Karen, I will hand over to you. Thank you. And this section is going to be chaired by Adrian, so I will go on to mute.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Before I start, I do just want to say that after a very combative election, I have received nothing but support from everybody within the board, all of the deputies, from Sheila, and I want to place on record my thanks for that. It's enabled me to hit the ground, if not exactly running, hopefully not with rabbits in the headlights during this very, very challenging period. I want to put on record my thanks to the fellow HOs, staff, and all deputies for that support, which I've greatly valued and indeed could not have managed without. With regard to anti-Semitism, it is a crisis. Even those of us who don't like to take the paranoid view recognize that these are unprecedented times. And in that sense, it was great to hear the Prime Minister say at the forum that he convened, and then it was televised, so saying to the whole of the country, all of society must tackle this crisis of anti-Semitism. And he said specifically, there are too many people who don't see anti-Semitism for what it is, anti-Jewish hatred, racism, pure and simple. That's what he said on the 5th of May. And my sense, for what it's worth, and I'm happy to take questions on this and discuss it further, is that ministry after ministry after ministry really, really wants to address this. I need to tell you that your staff, your volunteers, your honorary officers have been working flat out for the past 2 months on this crisis, on the streets, in TV and radio studios, on social media, in several government department meetings and civil society gatherings. Each of those meetings has required separate detailed briefing to make sure that we make maximum impact as your representatives in these spaces and places. We've been profiling how we feel. Vulnerable but resilient, anxious but resolute. We've been profiling what anti-Semitism is, how it mutates, based on Rabbi Jonathan Sacks's speech he gave, where he said that in the Middle Ages it was hostility to our religion. In the 20th century it was racial, and now it manifests itself as a virulent hatred of the state of Israel, and that's what it looks like now. And we've also been profiling what we need: protection, prosecution, and partnership. We need protection, and the work of our CST has been magnificent. It needs to be funded to a greater and greater extent, and we've seen some of that coming through. We need prosecution. We need fast-track people to be prosecuted for hate crimes. And we need partnerships with civil society, partnerships, as some of you have alluded to this morning, with people of all faiths and none, and partnership across civil society, with employers, with government, with the third sector, to identify anti-Semitism as a national crisis that it is, not just because we're under attack, but because it's an affront to British values and the kind of Britain that we all want to live in. As Adrian said before, we have responded to the community yearning to come together, to show unity at this time. And that's what led to the creation of last week's rally. There was a huge number of Jewish and non-Jewish supporters coming together to say precisely that this was not the kind of Britain we wanted to live in. It was complex to organise, as Adrian said, and in some respects, it was not our finest hour. But I do want to thank those of you who came to the rally in these difficult times. The forum at number 10 did result in additional resources to tackling anti-Semitism. We got an extra £25 million for increased police patrol in areas with large Jewish population and enhanced security at synagogues, schools and community centres. We got an additional £500,000 to be allocated to Barnet Council as an area with a large number of Jewish residents. And we know that hate crime prosecutions are to be fast-tracked, and we've already seen evidence of that. People arrested for the Golders Green stabbings already coming to trial. Finally, I do want to spotlight work done by the deputies in the local government elections. We have a mountain of work to do here. As residents adjust, as Carol said, as residents adjust to new council management with new councillors combining challenging views with a lack of experience of local government. But we have strong networks on the ground, and at national level, we're looking at constructive ways of engaging so that we have open communication channels with all parties. Lots of the work that we've put in previous months have proven to be invaluable in these past weeks. Our work on Jewish staff networks, including networks in the NHS and in teaching professionals, building on the Lord Mann, Penny Mordaunt-led commission recommendations, has enabled us to participate in Department of Business and Trade meetings effectively last week, where we said these Jewish staff networks are important, they need to be recognised, and we need to make sure that they get the support they need to represent their members effectively. Last week, I testified at a Home Affairs Select Committee meeting on anti-Semitism last week, together with Dave Rich from the CST, Russell Langer from the JLC, and Danny Stone from the Anti-Semitism Policy Trust. We were allocated an hour, and the session overran by half an hour. We covered the full range of issues: security, policing, marching, training, workplace, and other spaces where we experience anti-Semitism. At a Department of Education meeting, Louis Danker gave an overview, as he did in Downing Street, of what campus life is like, while saying that we do not want to create no-go areas for Jewish students. As he said to us a while back, we will not allow hostility to drive us into insularity. I look forward to hearing from all of you at this forum about your priorities for how we manage the critical weeks and months ahead. And finally, I want to stop where I started by thanking you all for your support in these very difficult times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. That's a really helpful and comprehensive report on much of what we're doing. Very much appreciate that. Just going to pick up on a few of the questions which were asked earlier, which, as Laura says, she clumped together and have been shifted to the forum. So if I could just pick up on those first. Owen asked the question about anti-Semitism in the social work profession. So I don't know what we can say about that. And Janvier also talked about what's happening with training with the BBC. So if you could just pick up on those, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. The social work issue follows on from a lot of work that we've done with networks in the NHS. It is an important area, and we've seen this also in the cultural space. I remember one of the most shocking moments that I had recently in the theatre was the play that Jonathan Friedland wrote that was at the Royal Court, where he talked about a social worker who went back to the office, said that she was dealing with a poor Jewish elderly woman who needed certain things, and somebody in the office said, "Oh, there aren't any poor Jews, are there?" It's that kind of casual anti-Semitism is what needs to be addressed. And I know that Noah Katz, our key worker on Jewish staff networks, is working across the board and will definitely be picking that up. With regard to the BBC, I want to be honest with you. Last week was full of lots and lots of things in the last 2 or 3 months. I have not yet picked up the BBC banner, but it's at the top of my list. I will say, meanwhile, my sense is that under the new leadership of the BBC, reporting has been better. But you ask a specific question on what anti-Semitism training they've had. I don't know the answer to that, and I will get back to you, Janvier. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, anti-Semitism training has been introduced. It's jointly by the Anti-Semitism Policy Trust and the CST. So that's a bespoke training package which has been put together. But I think it's something that we do need to revert to see. Is only relatively recently, and it's under the previous DG. So that's something that needs further attention. So that segues to Josh Foreman also asked about anti-Semitism in the NHS, and I know you mentioned John Mann's review, impending review of the NHS. So if you could just briefly speak to that, and if I could just also just picking up on previous questions, Susan Pascoe as well addressed the vexed issue of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and extreme criticism of Israel when one morphs into the other, and the issues of free speech and the extent to which anti-Semitism should honestly address the clear connections between anti-Zionism and delegitimization of Israel. If you could pick those two up as well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. With regard to the NHS, that was a critical issue, and I wanted to tell you that based on our discussions here, good briefing from my staff and everything else, at the Home Affairs Select Committee, I actually said that we have Jewish patients who they're about to say that they need kosher meals and they see a Palestinian badge on a staff, on a nurse uniform or something. That is a really difficult moment for people because they don't want to say they're Jewish because they feel that it could impact the level of healthcare that they have. And I could see that some of the MPs that we were talking through really hadn't seen that connection. And and I said that's what our community is living through that at the moment. If they don't know you're Jewish, this isn't necessarily the moment to say that when you can see that kind of insignia. And it was really important to have those kinds of examples to draw to their attention. The issue of anti-Zionism is critical, and of course, again, at the Select Committee, Home Affairs Select Committee, and other spaces and places, we're getting a lot of this. Oh, but we don't want to do anything about free speech. We made it very, very clear that the legitimate criticism of a government for specific actions that a government has taken is not the same thing as saying that a state should not exist. There is a direct crossover there into anti-Jewish hate. And we explained that we do have experience of what the world looked like before the state of Israel was there. And that therefore it is legitimate to say that that is anti-Jewish hate, it's racism, and it needs to be stamped out, whereas criticism of the independent actions of some governments is not what we're talking about here. One of the MPs, I did lose it with him actually because I was a bit hacked off. He was saying that we were saying that all of the pro-Palestinian marches should be banned. And when I say we, it was me, it was CST, it was JLC, it was Anti-Semitism Policy Trust was saying, no, what we're saying is that as the decision the police made with the Al-Quds March, which is that you can turn a march into a static protest, which is easier to police, that decision we're in favor of. What we're not in favor of is having pro-Palestinian marches, which are timed on a Shabbat at about midday to go close to synagogues at times when Jews are exiting from the synagogues, because those things are clearly designed to harass Jews. One of the MPs was saying, well, why don't you go for rerouting the marches? And of course, you know, the London Jewish Forum does amazing work working with police on the routing of these marches. The issue is that they want to go past the synagogues, they want to harass the Jews. So I did say to the MP, where the organisers won't agree to rerouting, your options are fewer. Then you go to a static march or you do what you do. But there were a huge amount of resources put into policing, and my sense is that the police really want to protect our communities at this time. It isn't perfect. As we heard from a deputy just before, there were different standards applied to the two marches that took place yesterday. But we are looking at that and we are in close dialogue, as is the London Jewish Forum and the other key groups working on this issue.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, and that's reference to Sue Huglin's question regarding the different treatment of the two. You know, I think we've been very clear about the concerns we had about the so-called Nakba rally, especially given the heightened concerns for the community at the present time. And it is disappointing that that not greater focus has been put on that particular protest relative to what else was going on yesterday. Right, I'm now going to go to people online. So what I'll do is I'll take three at a time, if that's okay. So if I'm just doing them in order as they appear on my screen. So if I can take Paul Harris, followed by Michael Reich. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to raise some concerns that I have about both the CPS and the policing in relation to all of these matters. It has taken numerous terrorist attacks, dead Jews, very badly injured Jews, before the Crown Prosecution Service have suddenly woken up and said, we're going to fast track these prosecutions. It seems to me that whilst this is welcomed, it is too little and too late. There is numerous examples in the past of them failing to prosecute hate crime, which in my view has helped lead to the environment of anti-Semitism that we currently face. It is appalling that for 2.5 years they have been largely absent, but certainly ineffective in prosecuting hate crime. And I am concerned that their response now, whilst important and necessary, is also a reflection of the fact that they realise that they have screwed up and not dealt with this properly. There are numerous other precedents.
So your time's up, Paul, so it's just very quickly finish.
I would like the board to ask the Home Affairs Select Committee to summon the DPP to discuss prosecution of hate crimes since October the 7th.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Also, sorry, my fault, but I should have asked you to say who you're representing. If you could just do that now.
Masorti Judaism.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Michael Reich, and if you could say who you represent. Thank you.
We've got at our shul, we've got the
So,
board
Michael, if you
from
could
the board
say
of
who you
deputies.
represent, please.
I said Mosaic Jewish Community.
Thank you.
Mosaic
I didn't hear
Reform.
that. So my apologies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we've had the boards, 16 boards at the shul for the last 10 to 12 days. We had a meeting on the 5th of May where we had the majority of people were interfaith people. The purpose of this is to invite people from outside to come to the non-Jewish people to understand all about Judaism. We invited all the local schools, only one accepted. And then once we started the exhibition, they decided to decline because of what happened in Golders Green. They were afraid for their children to come to us. At the same time, I stated at the meeting, here you are the interfaith people. Can you please bring members of all your sects, from Muslim, from Hindu, from Christian, to our shul, etc., so you can show this to other people? We've had none. There seems to be considerable worry to come to synagogues by people outside the Jewish community.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. If I can now just revert to Karen. So the first one was from Paul regarding the failure of the police and the CPS and the contribution that that's made to the environment that we're now in. Phillips was about Reform UK, and I don't think it's. I don't mean to dodge the question, but I think a kind of detailed discussion on the politics of Reform UK is probably outside the parameters of what we're focused on in this session. Needless to say, without expressing my own politics, and they're not mine, but there is the issue of Jewish values and allies are very subjective questions, and there are very different and strongly held views within the community. So I think that's all I can really say on that. And with Michael, I think that's a heartfelt explanation of the difficulties in engagement with wider society, which I'm sure all of us are experiencing. But Karen, perhaps you could focus principally on what Paul has raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adrian. Paul, thank you for your question, and I'm glad for the opportunity it gives me to thank you personally for the hours you are putting in for helping us with legal and other matters at this time. The time that you spent on documentation that comes your way is significant. I want to thank you for that. With regard to the CPS, too little, too late. Yes. And we will take that back. Obviously, we are in dialogue with the Home Affairs Select Committee, and it's an interesting idea to get some kind of a review of the Department of the DPP and the prosecution of hate crime since October the 7th. It's a very interesting idea. I'll go back with that and see how we can progress that. Thank you very much. With regard to people pulling out of interfaith activities, I want to say to you, Michael, and to everybody that we've experienced a lot of problems with this. I've been working with my stalwart deputy, Judith Prinsley, on a number of things, and I want to thank her for the work she's done in Haringey, as I thanked all of you for the work you did in local elections. And she was telling me that there are iftars, the connections that they've had for many, many years that they've built up at local level, and suddenly people not coming this year, not participating in our Seder services when they have been invited. It's heartbreaking. But I also need to tell you that something that you may not have seen was the letter that Adrian mentioned, put together by the Together Coalition, which was a civil society grouping that Brendan Cox created in the wake of the assassination of his wife. And that letter had support from across the religious spectrum. It was signed by people from the Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Zoroastrian communities, and the Church of England as well, obviously. So there are people who are willing to put their head up above the parapet and say, we don't want to live in a kind of Britain that supports that. But you're right, there is a large, at this moment, there is a large retraction. And I think that it's the local interfaith activities, the work that we're all involved with, that can help build the confidence that will lead to this, the cohesive society that we want to see.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Okay, I'm going to try and get some, so we'll try and keep responses more succinct as well, so I can get a few more people in, and then before we close the forum. So I'm going to go to people who haven't spoken so far. So if I can go to Clive Lawton, followed by Keith Myers, followed by Deborah Cohen. Thank you.
Good morning.
Clive. Good morning.
Because Laura told us we could only speak once, I've got a little bit from left over, which is simply to say that I
have
think
to introduce yourself as well, Clive.
Oh, I'm sorry, Clive Lawton from Bristol Hebrew Congregation. I simply to say that I think we really ought to applaud all those very many people from within.
We've lost.
Sorry, I want us to applaud all those many people who have given civic service in various councils roundabout who lost their seats. I'm very proud my daughter held hers, but lots of great people were thrown out, and I hope we befriend them and remember them well for the things they've done for us and for their communities. On this specific matter, two things. The first is that you may remember that the Israel issue, I've just seen my time's running out. I'm not going to get time to say this.
I'll give you 10 seconds more because you did 3.
Thank you. The issue was the Israel-Arab conflict. Now it's become the Jewish-Muslim conflict. This is a malevolent issue that the Muslim Brotherhood and the Iranian.
Yeah, I think we saw it, Clive. You've frozen
Muslims to fall for it.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
So you've been having there's technical problems, maybe at our end, I don't know, but thank you for that. If I go to Keith Myers and Deborah Cohen, and actually let me sneak in Judith Princey as well, just to keep this going. Right, Keith, if you could come on camera as well. Oh, you are on camera. Thank you.
Yeah, Keith Myers, Edgware United. Just CPS, for people to know, anti-Semitism is not a standalone criminal offence. So that has some hurdles. And I want to know whether the CPS now record anti-Semitic attacks, because they didn't when I worked there. On anti-Semitism, Holocaust education, Rob Winder said at a Yom HaShoah event that Holocaust education needs to be part of civic education and not history, because then you can look at, rather than just dead Jews, the failure of democratic institutions. Compulsory anti-Semitism training. I'm a civil servant. They have this training, but I've recommended in my department that more is needed. So, for example, reverse mentoring of the senior civil servants by Jews so they can turn the theory into practice. So I recommend others to do that too.
Thank you. Deborah Cohen. So we can't hear you. So we'll come back.
Can you unmute me?
Oh, you are unmuted. You are.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, it wouldn't let me unmute myself. I wanted to follow up from the points that I'm Deborah Cohen, Belsize Square Synagogue, and I think we all know that it was all very painful reaching those decisions. But I think that we need to look forward in the spirit of maintaining unity of mainstream Jewry. And I would like to ask the board what preparations they are making and what their thinking is for the next one, because there will undoubtedly be a next one. And that in my ideal world, perhaps the board and the JLC would work together without any of the CAA, etc., as the true representatives of mainstream jury, and that perhaps it would be better not to have any politicians, but to have a multi-faith allyship leading it. So Rabbonim, imams, etc., and no politicians, but to think about it now so that we don't get caught out on the back foot.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Deborah. And then Judith Princely. Can we hear Judith? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Judith Princely, Muswell Hill United Synagogue. First of all, I want to thank Karen for a very, very clear and expansive update. It was really helpful, and your work, which is ongoing. I want to relate to three things you mentioned about protection, prosecution, and partnership. These were basically endorsed in a recent community meeting that we had with Haringey, with the Jewish community. We've had terrific support from the police, but three things I want to share with you that have come up as action points and I think would be useful. Firstly, underreporting. Obviously, we brought up about CPS, and Hannah, the superintendent, is going to give us updates on that so that we feel it's heard and there's an action. Secondly, a suggestion, it'd be really helpful to have all shuls to have somebody as a representative who's at the ward panel meetings when you've got communities and you've got the safer neighbourhoods, really important. And thirdly, really to help our police who are going above and beyond, please can communities let them know sooner than later when the festival dates are and any events. This would really help them with their resources. And finally, we did at our Haringey Multi-Faith Forum, we brought up the point we'd like, Bibi had given a voice, but we wanted it more borough-wide, and she produced a letter which has been shared. So thank you very much. Sorry, I'm slightly rattled.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, Karen, do you want to come back to, so there's Clive Lawton on Arab-Israel conflict become Muslim Jewish and the baleful influence of the Muslim Brotherhood. Keith Miles, anti-Semitic attacks, are they recorded as such? Holocaust education, civic education rather than history, and reverse mentoring. Apologies if I've not picked up everything. I'll deal with that. Shall I just deal with Deborah's point first, which is we've already had a 2-hour meeting. We had it on Friday with JLC, UJA, and some of the denominations. Yes, there's a lot of thinking. Wouldn't be appropriate to make any commitments as to how we do things going forward in this forum, but obviously we are giving thought as to how we address things going forward. So that is very much a work in progress, but point is well taken. Okay, if I could go and then if you could pick up on Judith's points as well, which I think were helpful practical illustrations of what's happening in Haringey as well, and just use the opportunity to thank Judith for all her efforts as well in that regard. Thank you. Also, if you could keep it relatively brief, because I want to go for one more round before we run out of time. Thank you.
Yeah, I am unmuted. I thought I wasn't. Look, these points have been tremendously valuable. Clive, you're absolutely right about the Israel-Arab conflict having somehow substituted for Jewish-Muslim conflict in a way that is deeply, deeply unconstructive. We're going to take that forward. I think we have managed to raise awareness that anti-Semitism is anti-Jewish hate, and trying to get a more wide understanding of what is legitimate criticism of any particular government and what is virulent hatred of the state of Israel. We are working on the distinction, but in our local government manifesto, we did say that importing foreign conflicts is not useful for local government elections, but I think we need to do more work on the really important point that you raised, Clive. The other points around CPS, how they record, I've written them all down. The very valuable suggestions of Judith around underreporting and synagogues being present at ward meetings, I'm going to take those forward and give greater awareness of that through our systems so the deputies become more aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thanks, Karen. Right, we are running out of time, so so I'm really sorry. I'm probably not going to be able to call everybody, but that's not deliberate. If I can call Max Royston, if I can call you next, Max, your new deputy as well. So welcome to the board. And then if I could have Rick Cooper, Dori Schmetterling, and Flora Franks, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And I'm Max Royston, Deputy for St John's Wood, new deputy. I've got two questions. One, will the board of deputies be adding to the calls for Misa Harriman to be dismissed from his role as president of the South Bank Centre? And two, yesterday's Nakba Day march, saw calls of globalised intifada, death to the IDF go unpunished, and it went past the synagogue after Heaton Park, the government's primary promise beyond the additional funding to CST was to stop marches going within the vicinity of synagogues. And after this one, it's been to tackle hate speech. Yesterday, we saw neither of those things. Mark Rowley and the Gold Commander Claire Haynes actually reduced protections for the Jewish community in rolling back on the protections of synagogues. So what will we be doing to challenge that? And how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Max. Rick Cooper, please.
Richard Cooper, Portsmouth and South Sea Hebrew Congregation. We in the diaspora have the luxury of being paralysed by indecision for fear of derogating from the highest moral standards. The people and government of Israel, surrounded by enemies who want to exterminate them, do not. Fellow deputies, please let's not fall into the trap warned of by Sartre and Jabotinsky of twisting ourselves into knots trying to placate anti-Semites. I don't want freedom from anti-Semitism to come at the price of condemning Israel.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Rick. Dori Schmetterling, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Dori Schmetterling, New West End Synagogue, Bayswater, London. Just would like to first commend Karen on that initial statement. Tremendous. But in that there was talk, and in her speech and in others, there's always talk of a pro-Palestine march. Can we please stop using those words and encourage all authorities to stop using? They are Israel hate marches. And we know this. That's what Suella Braverman said, and she's right. So can we please stop using pro-Palestine and tell others not to? I am pro-Palestine if it's a proper state next door to Israel. So please think about that. No more pro-Palestine unless it's clearly saying a second state next to the Jewish state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dori. If we can go to Flora, please. Thank you.
Can't unmute.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I lost reception for quite a while, so I might have missed something. I know Josh mentioned, and I think it's extremely important, and everybody has mentioned it. Karen, thank you, Laura, you have mentioned admirably. The NHS, I'm talking about a real story where an older friend of mine, really sick, was in a National Health NHS hospital during Pesach. I'm not talking about during the year when it's hard enough to keep kosher. 3 of her children were all abroad reasons beyond their control. So you might be thinking, well, why didn't they do something except on phone calls? She was too frightened. She lived on fruit for 7 days. I am not exaggerating. This is really something that has to be taken up. She is so frightened. She's forbidden her daughter. She's forbidden me to do anything about it. She was so frightened. She just hid for 7 days. Nobody could visit her. Her family weren't there. It was Pesach time. It's a real story, I'm telling you. I'm not just saying hatred or, frightened they saw a badge. I'm not undermining it, please. And did I say British Emma?
Thanks, Flora. We've got that. Yeah, thank you.
Very frightening. It was extremely frightening.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank Josh for saying how important it is that we should not have to.
We're running out of time. Really sorry, we're running out of time. But thank you for sharing that distressing example of what's happening. Well, I'm going to just quick liberty. If I'm not going to give you a minute because we're actually running out of time. But if you can just give very brief contributions, just so I catch people who haven't spoken. Gerald, if you could just 10 seconds. Gerald Fox, Michael Grenfell again, just 10 seconds, and Denise Lesser, and then we'll wrap up. So, but please do just keep it very brief. Gerald.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm a member and have been for many decades a member of the Luton Council of Faith, a town that's dominated by Muslims. I make it quite clear at meetings that I want Israel to exist. And we do discuss things openly. And I was invited with my wife to the main mosque in Luton when just after the 7th massacre, and they listened to me for a quarter of an hour, and some of the women, clearly Muslim, were weeping when I told them about my brother who used to live in Kibbutz Dirim, and I lost all his friends. After he retired, he lost all his friends there in one day.
Terrible. Yeah. Thank you very much, Gerald. So you didn't say who you represent. If you could just do that briefly. So I think we missed you, but we'll work it out. Okay, thank you. Not your fault. Okay, Michael and Denise, really, if you can keep it as brief as possible. Thank you. I don't want to be known as the person who allowed the plenary to run over time. Right.
Michael Granfell,
Yeah.
New London Synagogue.
Thank you.
Very briefly on the vexed question of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism.
Yeah.
All the anti-Semitism training in the NHS, in schools, in the BBC. The difficult thing will be to persuade people that anti-Zionism is a problem, and they will think, well, of course we must clamp down on anti-Semitism, but not have problems with slogans like globalize the Intifada or River to the Sea. And I think we need to put some work into persuading people that that is a real issue. It's the issue that the people who did Heaton Park and Golders Green, they don't see the distinction, and we need to.
Thanks very much, Michael. Appreciated. Very good point. And Denise, you're the final voice. Please keep it as brief as possible.
Thank you, Adrian. A couple of 2 points.
Southampton United.
Southampton United Synagogue, Denise Lester. Please, with reference to Deborah's comments and your Deborah Coe's comments and your pickup, please could the board engage collaboratively with all organisations across the community, including the CAA, who is a media port of call in relation to the issue of anti-Semitism. I'm concerned that the comments result in a misrepresentation of the need to engage collaboratively. Secondly, in relation to the marches, I was there, saw the march yesterday.
I've got to wrap up, Denise. Really sorry.
And there are those that firmly deemed it to be a pro-Palestinian march with anti-Israel elements. So it's not as stark as that with reference to Dory's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks and apologies for rushing everybody. And again, also apologies for not being able to call people who've already spoken. Karen, could you just very briefly answer those points? Appreciate you can't give detailed responses to each of them.
I'll do my best. Max, welcome. Good to see you here. Nice to kind of see you. I've spoken to you on the phone, but it's good to see you. We will follow up with regard to the South Bank Centre leadership and the double standards issue with regard to policing the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign March. That's the advantage of us being in direct dialogue with the Metropolitan Police, both us and, of course, the London Jewish Forum, and we will follow up in partnership with them on that issue. I think the issues around Israel are precisely those ones that we have to unpack. We need, as Michael said, to generate a greater understanding of how you can be a proud Zionist, believing passionately in the right of the state of Israel to exist, and at the same time, from time to time, recognize that it's legitimate to criticize some of the actions of some governments. People don't have that nuanced understanding, and sadly, we live in a social media-driven communication space where they're much more familiar with yes, no, black, white, aren't off, good, bad, than that kind of nuanced way of thinking. That's what makes the job more difficult, but we absolutely have to do it. With regard to what Flora said about the NHS, I meant to say before and I didn't. When I was at the Downing Street Forum, I was on a table with Wes Streeting. He had NHS trust heads of place there, and he seemed very, very committed to dealing with this. They were a bit worried about whether it would be about special casing the Jewish community, and we were able to say, no, 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 this is exactly what the affirmative action campaigns of a few years were all about. It's not about special casing, it's about dealing with an anomaly through a temporary measure that corrects a problem.
Thanks,
The
Karen.
aim is equality.
I'm
So
going to have
those are
to,
just
we're
what I
going to have to
wanted to
bring
say.
this to an end, but thanks so much. Sorry we didn't get to all of the points raised, but I hope you all agreed it was a very full and constructive discussion. So I'm going to hand back to Laura now. Thank you. Thanks very much.
So thank you all so much. Very useful conversation. And I know that there's an enormous amount people want to talk about on that one. But thank you to Karen and Adrian for really leading on this hugely important area. So I'm just going to wrap up in 2 minutes. The first thing I want to talk about is the crowdfunder. Really important. Everyone's had an email from Michael asking people to act as ambassadors for the crowdfunding campaign. It's really important at the moment. You know, we have a very small professional staff, and we need to carry on with the work. So last year, the crowdfunder was very successful. We raised over £250,000. So if you are able to be an ambassador, even if you've not been involved before as a fundraiser or a crowdfunding, then please do be in touch with Andrew, who will help you work out how to do it. And people will follow up, either Michael or Ben, and Ben is leading on this. And thank you to Ben Crown, our treasurer, for doing this. Please be in touch and take it seriously. Reminder that the next plenary is regional on the 5th of July. I want to encourage everybody to be part of and to support the Jewish Cultural Month, which starts this evening. And finally, a good luck to Phil and to Francis for the imminent birth of their baby. Thank you so much to the board staff, to Shock AV, to the honorary officers, and everybody else who's been involved in making this morning's plenary so successful. And we're only 4 minutes late, so I would wish you all well. Have a wonderful Sunday, and thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Just to give thank you to Laura as well for her first role as independent chair. Thank you all very much for making your own time to join the meeting. Just to echo Laura's sentiments regarding Phil and Francis, we wish them Bishat Tova, and please do help us as best as you can, both with the crowdfunding, but also please demonstrate your positive engagement with the Jewish Culture Month as well, which it's amazing. It's the first year we've done it, and we've got over 100 events, so there's a lot of excitement around that. Thank you so much all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Chodesh Tov.